You understand? But because of this, what happens is the middle class improves in status and power. Okay? So if you look at the system, you would think, okay, look, the poor want this system because they have more money, they have more equality, but also the people who really want the system are the middle class because it means that over time, they have more power and status than the rich, right? And this is a pretty powerful coalition. And that's why socialists believe that over time, this is a natural evolution. And this is true for most of human history, right? So think of after World War II, Europe didn't become communist, it didn't become capitalist, it became socialist. It had a very strong welfare system, okay? So just the natural course of human history, socialism will become inevitable. Okay, does that make sense to you guys? Okay, because this is the majority of people. But Marx had problems with this, okay? Marx says, okay, all right, the major problem with this is false consciousness. Okay? You think that this is a natural process, but capitalists, the ruling elite, have a lot of tricks up their sleeves, okay? For example, they can brainwash the workers, right? So for this to work out, you need to create true consciousness. So you need to destroy religion. You need to revamp the education system. You need to control the media, okay? Otherwise, the capitalists will use the schools, the media, religion to brainwash the workers. And also, these workers need to unite together across the world to have true power, okay? Why? Because the real struggle is one of class, okay? Consciousness. And for socialism to arise, we need to destroy class, okay? So the idea of the middle class obtaining power, that's bad. What we should have is just everyone the same, okay? Equality. Alright? And that's the idea of Marxism, to destroy all property, okay? That's the main difference between socialism and communism. Socialism is the redistribution of property. Communism is the destruction of property. But if you do it this way, what happens is that the middle class now lose status. Right? And so it's both the rich and middle class that suffer under communism, and therefore they will probably unite together against the poor. You understand? So it sounds similar, socialism and communism, but it's night and day. Socialism seems like the natural evolution of things, okay? And so it sounds right. So why is Marx screwing around this, okay? He also says that, okay, you also need a party. You also need a vanguard, an elite, to destroy the false consciousness, unite the workers, and create a communist society. And when they do that, when system is completely communist, then the party will give up power and you will have a socialist paradise. But then the question then is, why would the party give up power, right? So if the party is capable of creating consciousness, why don't they just switch to a different false consciousness? Okay? So the problem with Marx is that it's working on socialism and making it more extreme. It's also making it more confusing. And why would he do that? Okay, it's very confusing now. All right, and my argument to you is that when this happens, when an idea becomes more extreme, the intention is to discredit it, to make it illegitimate, to destroy the idea. All right, so if you think about it, according to game theory, the people responsible for communism is not Marx. The people responsible for communism are the capitalists, the ruling elite, because they want to destroy the idea of socialism, right? They don't want this unity between the middle class and the workers. They want the middle class to remain with the nobility and the oligarchy, okay? Does that make sense? All right, so let me show how this works. All right, so in a feudal economy, you have the monarch and the nobility, okay? And the monarch and nobility have power through three mechanisms. First of all, they control the land, they control the military, and they control the religion, okay? So this is the status quo. And then the peasants are the people who work the land. And this was true for most of Catholic Europe. But then with the rise of industrialism, you have new people come into power, okay? So for example, you have the bourgeoisie. Who are the bourgeoisie? Bourgeoisie are just the capitalists, the factory owners, okay? And because of the bourgeoisie, you now have the workers. And then because of this industrial economy, you have the middle class. Okay? The middle class are just like lawyers, teachers, accountants, journalists, people who support the industrial economy. All right? Now, when this happens, when you have a new groups of people emerge, you now have tension, you have violence, okay? And this is ultimately what led to the French Revolution, where the new order, okay, these people work together to try to overthrow the old order. And this led to the Napoleonic Wars, 7 wars fought between France and everyone else, okay? And that led to the deaths of millions, tens of millions of people in Europe. It was a deadly war. And after Napoleon was defeated, all the leaders, the nobility of Europe got together and decided that from now on, we will no longer fight war, okay? They created something called the Concert of Europe. The Concert of Europe is basically these different monarchies agreeing to resolve their differences over negotiations rather than on the battlefield. So think of it as the United Nations, okay? And it worked really, really well. The problem is that it worked too well, because you're not resolving this problem, okay? You're not resolving this conflict between the new order and the old order, right? These people want to maintain the status quo. But these people, the industrial economy, wants a new order that allows for democracy, okay? Liberalism, okay? Socialism, okay? So a more redistribution of wealth, greater participation in the political system, and the limitations of the religion, okay? So basically, the French Revolution. All right? So right now, so this system was created to avoid the French Revolution, but because of peace, the ingredients for the French Revolution are increasing, okay? And this led to something called the 1848 revolutions. 1848 revolutions. And this happened throughout the entirety of Europe, where each place there was a uprising, a combination of these people, the bourgeoisie, middle class, and workers, who called for changes in government, okay? Some places were violent, some places were peaceful. Some places focused more on democracy, some places focused more on liberalism, some places focused more on socialism, okay? All right? So does that make sense? After 1848, what the leaders of Europe recognized is that, you know what, if we don't do anything about this situation, eventually the new order is going to consume us. The new order of the bourgeoisie, middle class, and workers, this alliance is going to destroy us. So what can we do about it? Their solution is we have to divide them, okay? We have to divide them. So before, the conflicts were about power, status, religion, okay? So the first idea is, let's create the idea that the real conflict is class, okay? So the real enemy is not between nobility and the bourgeoisie. Okay? The real enemy is between the bourgeoisie and the workers. Okay? This is the real conflict. Right? Second is that we have to discredit these people and make this movement seem extreme, fanatical, zealous, okay? And you do that by saying, okay, no property. What we want is not a more fair society. What we want is a completely equal society where no one has any money, no one has any rights, no one has any freedom. Communism, okay? And the third way you delegitimize it is say that this is an international conspiracy. Okay, guys? Jews. These communists are a secret society who want to take over the entire world. So it's not that, oh, these workers just want more rights. No, no, no. These workers are tools in an actual conspiracy to conquer the entire world. They are funded by Jews, by capitalists, by the British. Who cares, okay? But they're not Germans. They're not French. They're not us. You understand? So if you think about it, communism was a psyop. Okay? A tool used by the elite, by the nobility, to make the movement of democracy, socialism, and liberalism illegitimate. Okay, this is his propaganda. Okay? Does that make sense, guys? All right, so let's look at the evidence for this. All right, so this is the 1848 revolutions. So what happened was that because of peace, you have overpopulation, you have economic growth. Okay? That led to inequality, that led to corruption, that led to conflict between the bourgeoisie, the new rising powers, and the nobility, the status quo powers, okay? And that's why you have these revolutions throughout Europe, okay? So look at France, okay? This is France, you look at like all these places. This is happening all at the same time. Okay, everywhere. And again, different systems will respond differently. The only place in Europe that's basically spared these revolutions is England. And the reason why is that England has colonies where if you're not happy, you can go somewhere else, like Canada or the United States or Australia, New Zealand, okay? But you can leave. But everyone else is stuck where they are and they are fighting for more rights. And again, this puts the fear of God into the European nobility, okay?